me in those experiences that my dad provided for my family, me and my family, um, it really ignites that fire. When you see it for yourself and you see it actually happen in your life, you will believe that it's true. If you didn't before, that then is proof, and you will believe it's true by then. And those experiences ignited the fire and showed me that if I just put in the work and be intentional early. That is something that I really stress about a lot, is being intentional early.
Welcome to another episode of Soul Shift Sessions Podcast, where we have deep, transformative conversations to help you transform your mind to transform your life. I'm your favorite freedom and financial wellness coach, Coach Sapphire Star. Of course, I have with me my favorite co host.
Kyle McCloud.
And today, guys, you are in for a treat. We have a special guest. But before I introduce our special guest, I just would love to remind all our soul shifters to make sure that you visit us at www at soul I'm sorry, www.soulshift.sessions.com, where you can follow us, you can join the tribe, all our social media accounts. You can also come on and be a guest and join the conversation. I wanted to ask you guys a question. What if I told you the biggest gap in wealth isn't money, it's mindset? That's the conversation that we are having today with our special guest, who is a TEDx speaker, a host of the Future Millionaire Podcast, and a young entrepreneur showing the younger generation the way to wealth. Welcome to Social Sessions Podcast, Saahil Baxi.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I feel so honored to, and like I said, it feels weird being a guest on a podcast when I'm usually the one who's the host, but it's amazing feeling, and I'm really happy to be here. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you. We're so happy
Pleasure
to
to have
have
you on
you
the show.
here. Absolutely. Because I had the pleasure of being a guest on your podcast, Future Millionaires, and it was such a great conversation. I'm truly inspired by your wisdom and your knowledge, because I had to ask you before we came on, like, wait, how old are you again? Like, you're 18 years old. And so to be so young and to be so wise, I think, just ahead of your years, tell the soul shifters a little bit more about yourself and how did you arrive to where you are today at such a young age?
Absolutely, Sapphire. So I really started my journey to learning these skills that I have today at 16, because my dad growing up, he didn't believe, he went through school and college and all those stuff, all those sorts of things, but he had that sort of shift later on in life where he's like, I don't want my kids to be put through that, public schooling and that sort of normal education, because we don't believe that they're truly teaching the skills that teenagers need to have equipped with them today. So my dad made it a mission to homeschool me and my sister, and we've been homeschooled our entire lives. I'm 18, she's 22, and for our entire lives, he's been our coach there, and he's been there with us to train us with these specific skills and the things that we do need in life to be successful. So going fast forwarding to like 16, when I really started my journey of that process of learning those skills, was I started out with getting into AI consulting, AI coaching, because at the time AI was still growing and getting huge. And so my dad told me to take that opportunity while it's still fresh, and the idea there to, try and set up your own business. We don't have the expectation that it's going to grow huge or anything, but just to get myself experience and started in that sort of field. And what that did was or what I was doing, I was going out every single day, going to 10, 15 business owners a day and, cold knocking, cold calling. And I did that for a couple months, just constantly going up to business owners and introducing what I'm doing. And of course, at first, it wasn't easy to do that, not at all, because at the time, conversations and communication, talking in general, wasn't my strength. But getting those reps in and doing that training consistently, it built my confidence in speaking, talking to strangers, approaching people over time. So after that, after learning that, after really upgrading that skill, I did it again, but with what was it? Just with the idea of eliminating the fear of rejection, which is what my TEDx talk is about, and that's what I talked about on my TEDx stage. So I did it for next couple months of cold calling and cold knocking on businesses, and that was really an amazing journey, and I'm so grateful to my dad that he took the time to put me through that training and get me out there, to get me out of my comfort zone and really build a habit and skills that I needed. And then that's why today I'm doing my podcast, Future Millionaires. I started that about 7 months ago, and I started out not with a lot of expectations in my head, wasn't really expecting to do a lot with this, because I never had any experience with podcasting. So this is going to be something I'm pretty new that I was getting into. But that opportunity and getting into podcasting opened a lot of doors to me, because now, again, I was doing cold knocking, cold calling for AI consulting, AI tutoring. And then I was doing purely just to get myself out of that comfort zone and to build that habit back up. And then again, for the third time, I'm still doing it. I'm still going out to business owners every day, approaching strangers, and this time with the mission to promote my podcast and potentially get some people who want to just share their lessons, their life lessons, their story, and their insights to inspire the young generation. And that's, sort of what I'm doing now. But getting into the podcast world, I didn't expect it to grow so much, but it did, with a lot of help and support from my family. And it's grown really, really well. And I've had the opportunity, to interview someone like you, Sapphire, on my show, which was a pleasure. But I've also been able to interview people. I've been able to interview someone who's worth over $25 million, another multimillionaire. I even was able to interview a guy who's an owner for one of the best bars in the world. And so getting into that field of podcasting, get into that world there, and especially from all that training and all that consistency of developing those skills and with conversations, talking to people and communications and all those sorts of things, now that made it so much easier to build relationships with people and connect with people. And as well as, people always love to talk about their story and people always love to talk about what they do. So I'm giving these guests a chance to do exactly that on the podcast. And my mission, of course, is to inspire the young generation along with it, because as I mentioned, a lot of young people, teenagers, are not taught the necessary skills to become successful. And so that's why I'm here doing what I am doing today, to bring the light to the young generation.
Well
That was
said.
awesome. That was awesome. You mentioned family a lot, especially your dad. What would you say is the key factor from your family unit that makes it seem like you can accomplish anything?
That's a great question, Kyle. I've seen my dad growing up. He's been in business for a long, long time, and I'm very grateful that growing up I've been able to see him and my family as well, my mom and my sister in the process. I've seen them in business since they're all older than me, so they're gonna have more experience. But specifically my dad, because he's really like the runner of the family. He's the one that really drives everyone toward the direction of why we're doing what we're doing, especially as a family. But just having the um just being able to see him do all these sorts of things, it's an inspiration to the rest of the family. And because he's had the experience and he's went through life and he's you know done all these sorts of things with business, um it's just sort of passed down onto me and my sister. And because he is he's always driven in the mindset of being a family person, a family guy. And it makes it so much easier. So it's not like we're really running into challenges a lot. But because of him going through his own journey and me being able to see that, as well as my sister having that support in place already, and seeing what he's done, it's made things so much easier compared to if he had not gone through any of that sort of thing. So the fields and the areas that he's been into really made it a lot easier to get into what I've been doing.
Has there been
Wow.
anything that you've done since you're in your journey of business that has surprised any of your family members?
Um, there are definitely a couple of points in my journey, and a lot of this really happens around my podcasting, just because
Mhm.
I guess that's just really where um the seed is sprouting. I guess that's just one of those things that I'm really really good at naturally. But that skill of podcasting, right? For example, I interviewed a friend of mine. She was very very happy to be there, but she is just a little bit about her. What she does is she helps bring support, and helps out women who are in that phase of grieving, grieving loss. um, and so she's sort of that coach and that support system for them. When they don't know what to do and they feel stuck in life, she is that guide for them. And so she shared a lot of, topics that are emotional and are a little bit heavy for a person, because, you know, it definitely was one of the most emotional conversations that I had on the podcast. But that's why I'm honestly glad that it came to what it did, because these are conversations that are supposed to be real, and that's exactly what it felt like in that moment. And so she was touching on a deep topic that really hit home to her, really hit her heart emotionally, and a natural strength that definitely surprised my family when I told them, is like, hey, I had this conversation with her and we were touching on this really deep topic. And I made sure that I was, in my response, when someone is feeling that sort of way, you come across softer, you are understanding, and you want to make sure that you're providing them that space, that opening up to you isn't, going to be an issue, that, hey, I can trust that the information that I'm sharing with this person, that he is not going to make me feel ashamed about what I'm doing. And, exactly that's how I wanted to come across. And, after I told my dad about it, and my family, my dad said something like, he's very, very impressed to see that I have a very natural way of coming across very empathetic,
Mhm.
and coming across in a way that people feel more comfortable around me, because I've been told a lot that um, I'm very, very soft, and I would come across as a safe space, a comfortable space. People don't feel pressured as much around me when they talk to me, because I sound, as a young person, I don't look threatening at all. So me looking as young as I am, I don't look like a threat, and I don't sound like a threat either. So it's just that one, and there's many other experiences, but one of those, that one experience right there really, it was a moment that I felt empowered, and I really felt good about myself, knowing that that's a natural skill that I found out, and that not just only that I noticed, like, hey, you know what, I did a great job at this, but my dad agreed, and he was on the exact same page as me, saying how impressed he was, and how I have a natural way of bringing a comfortable space to people.
Yeah, I totally agree with that because, I would like to add to that. You were speaking on your youth and non-threatening, but one thing I do enjoy when I have talked with you before is you honestly forget how old you are. When I'm talking to you, it's like, oh, because some people may look at a young person and feel that, oh, I can't share because they wouldn't understand or they don't have the experience. Why would I share this? They don't know what I'm talking about. But you have this way of it, you don't really necessarily think about how old you are, if that makes sense. It just feels like, oh, I'm having a conversation with someone that is receiving the information, and I guess it's the wisdom that you have. I don't want to say you forget your age because that may come across kind of strange, but
I think
is
it's
is
okay.
it,
I think you're okay. You're okay.
yeah, but it's definitely like, oh, yeah, like I'm sharing this information with someone that's receptive and, like you say, empathetic. And I do think that's a superpower because not everyone have that. Even adults, even people well off, older, don't have that ability to do that. So kudos to you for being able to really be your authentic true self and not compromise that, and also see the value in that and receive that. So kudos to you for that. You talked about, young people and sharing and having this amazing podcast and platform. And what are some things that you've noticed amongst people in your circle or younger people, some things that they may need to unlearn to be able to learn to go on this journey that you talk about on your podcast?
Absolutely, Sapphire. So some things that I've noticed around teenagers that they need to unlearn. One of them is, and this goes a long way, because I've heard this a lot when it comes to doing your work and your homework at school, is procrastination. You're not going, you When you're going through a journey, and wanting to pursue success, and if you really are serious about that, procrastination has to go away. Because if you're procrastinating about your homework, then you're going to procrastinate about the other work that you're going to do later on in life, and that's not a healthy habit or a healthy mindset that you want to have if you're really going to go into that journey of pursuing that success. um Another, and a lot of this really comes down to mindset, because I know when it comes to high schoolers, young people being in school in general, school gets can really drain them a lot, and it's completely unhealthy. They're always in that they're always dreading waking up early and going to school every day for 5 days a week, and they absolutely hate it. And to find a way of that peace of mind, and really seeking that sense of security in your mind and in your space, so that you don't feel as stressed. And I mean, taking breaks, going out for walks. Like, for example, what I did was, I went with my dad yesterday evening, and it was a pretty boring day, honestly. but I didn't want to let it get to my head so much. So I went with my dad, and it was just me and him, and we went to the beach and just walked for 20, 30 minutes. And it's that fresh air, that breeze, looking at the ocean, observing, how the water works, observing how observing the high tide, observing the people that are, out there having fun, and just really taking in the experience and the view, the sensation. It calms down the mind because it's something that is calm. It's nothing erratic. It's nothing loud. It's you right there staring at the ocean, maybe just walking down and feeling the beauty of life and really feeling the beauty of how good the weather is. So it's things like that that prevent me from getting into that burnout, and prevents me from, you know, losing the space of my head. But no, it sets me right there on track to, get into that peace in my own head, and builds that sense of security in my own space. So again, a lot of this, when it comes to young people, they need to learn how to regulate their bodies and regulate their minds, most importantly, because it is not something that is normally practiced in today's world. So I just want to really reinforce that there.
Procrastination is one of those topics where I tell you, it is like the edge of the sword from youth all the way into adulthood. And there are other factors that can play into the reason why we procrastinate. But at the end of the day, it's like, it's something we have to be able to have. I don't want to say have control over, because I don't know if that's, but it's something that we have to have systems in place to deal with, I think, as we get older. So thank you. That was a good one.
Yeah.
100%, 100%. And I like, I like that you said having systems in place, because, control to some people might not be their best interest. And, people, and I think control in some cases can be a good idea, but at least having systems in place where that it can lead up to that regulation, or whatever that is, having systems in place. And it sounds a lot better in my head than when it comes to having 100% control on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also like how it's like, I'm going to go with my dad to the beach, and the reason why I like that is I grew up in a culture where if you were doing something like that during the day, that it was frowned upon, because we had to hustle and we had to work and we had things to accomplish. And I think that taking that time to enjoy nature and being one with nature, I think it makes such a difference, and it's so therapeutic, and can, as you said, regulate the system. And that's something that I was not taught as a young adult. It was something I had to learn a whole lot later.
Right, Kyle. And I think, and I want to point it out there, is that at the time of the day that you do it as well, because I probably could have done it maybe at 12, but I don't think it probably wouldn't have had the same effect if I were to do it then, rather than doing it, 7 p.m. is when we did it. So I think just usually doing it around evening, because that's when the work day is over, and that's when you finally have some time to yourself. You have no other commitments. Usually you don't have any commitments in the evening, and then you can just take that time for yourself, which is way better to invest your time into seeking that healthy mindset. This, like again, it kind of matches the name of the podcast, to shift your soul,
Yes.
into, a healthy space, and a healthy mindset, compared if you're doing it to like at noon. But doing it in the evening, 1,000 times better, 1,000 times better.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yes. And I love what you're saying without actually saying it about, and I say this all the time as a financial coach, that wealth isn't about just money, right? Thinking like a millionaire is not thinking about all the money you have. It's about the decisions, the day-to-day decisions that we make before we even achieve that money goal, whatever that is. But also what true wealth really means. It's about being able to have time to spend with your kids and take them to the beach, right? To be able to pour into your children, to leave a legacy for the next generation, for them to be able to contribute not only for themselves and their family, but to the community and our society as a whole. To me, I feel like that's the true value of what it means to create wealth. You sharing the experience with your family, your father, and you being able to do and have the influence and be able to be a TEDx speaker and be able to have your podcast. That is true wealth, that is true wealth. And so I have a question for you. Again, thinking like a millionaire, what does that look like for you for like the day to day, like those skills and habits that you do on a daily basis to help you achieve your goals?
Absolutely. So, one thing that I'm very blessed and very grateful to God about is doing what I'm doing today early because, it's not about how much we do, but really for us young people, it's about how early we are starting and what we're doing. And so, how I am, living my life and working to that goal of how I want to live for the rest of my life is I'm actively pursuing um, that version of financial freedom and that true wealth, as you mentioned. But what that looks like to me, true wealth is having those options at your hand. So being able to do the things I want with the people I want and as often as I want. That to me is true wealth and that version of financial freedom to me. I want to be able to do the things that I want whenever I want and with the people that I love and care about. And my dad has done a great job at showing me what that really looks like, and I could not be any more grateful. There was one point, growing up in around 2016 and so on, because my dad, of course, he was also actively pursuing that financial freedom and that true wealth. We were able to go to Disney World over 200 times. And we
Wow.
weren't even living in Florida by then. We were still living in Michigan, and so we had to drive down or fly down to Florida and we would snowbird for like 6 months. But,
Wow.
I didn't even know
just
that was possible. I didn't know that was possible for a human being to visit.
well, trust me, Kyle. I am living proof that it is possible. That
It
is
is possible.
possible.
I love that for you
And
guys.
yeah, so going to Disney World over 200 times. We've been to Universal like what, 50 times at Universal Studios. Um, we've gone to do things like and as well as opening up other opportunities like being able to become a TEDx speaker. Me, my sister, and my dad, all three of us are TEDx speakers.
Ooh.
Um, and s- and again, I can't really think of any more experiences, but it's there. It is possible. It is true. And that right there, me in those experiences that my dad provided for my family, me and my family, um, it really it ignites that fire. When you see it for yourself and you see it actually happen in your life, you will believe that it's true. If you didn't before, that then is proof, and you will believe it's true by then. And those experiences ignited the fire and showed me that if I just put in the work and be intentional early. That is something that I really stress about a lot, is being intentional early. And you see me over here right now, that it's not just something that he's saying, he is actually doing it. He's not just talking about it just to talk about it, but he is being intentional early. And because I saw that early on in my life, it is something that I'm actively doing, something that I believe is possible. Because unfortunately, the reality is most people, not a lot of people, believe that type of lifestyle is really possible. People try to live just to get by, but they were they were never able to see the possibility of them living a lifestyle where they are in that freedom of time and money. And part of my mission is to help people see that. And getting my message out through here is, for anyone who's listening, that lifestyle is possible. It obviously comes with a lot of hard work that my dad has been doing for, the last decade or so. But it is possible. You just got to put the work, you got to put the time, you have to be intentional early. That's really where it happens.
I love it. And I think now that when you say Disney, I think because your father was on the podcast, I believe he was in season 2 of the podcast. I forget which episode, but I do think I remember him saying, just sharing the stories of you guys going to Disney, where I don't remember how many times, but I do remember him saying that that's like a highlight moment in his life, being able to take you guys to Disney. Where you remember you and Kyle, you were talking about, and you were sharing how you guys went to Disney and stuff like that. So I think I do remember that.
Yeah. I mean,
It,
I definitely haven't been 200 times, but there is something about going to that place and watching your family
Yeah.
enjoy the experience. I remember we took my oldest when she was old enough to know she was having a good time, but too young to understand why. And I watched her literally come out of her shell the night before we went there, because my wife had picked me up from the airport in Atlanta, which I was actually flying back from Puerto Rico. So she drove with the baby, 15 months old, down to Atlanta, picked me up, and then we drove to the
Wow.
resort. And we get to the resort probably about 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. And this child, who was always just clingy towards us, I saw her look like the road runner in that lobby. Like, she was going up to everybody. And she's half Puerto Rican, and everybody there was Latino. So it was like all of a sudden she found her people. And she was just in everyone's faces at that moment. I had never seen her open up like that, and she has never looked back from that moment, and had a great time at Disney. So I could see why your dad has like an affinity for that place, because he
Yeah.
got a chance to see his family thoroughly enjoy it.
Yeah, it is. It's the happiest place on earth, right? I remember
Yeah.
taking my daughter. I never went as a kid, but I remember it was something in me. It was like, oh no, I want to take my daughter to this magical place. I took my daughter when she was like 4 or 5, when she was young. I didn't, I was like, she didn't remember. So I took her again when she was a teenager to,
Yeah.
for her to experience it and realize what she's experiencing. And then being able to experience that with my daughter and granddaughter, it is a magical thing. And I think it's really the core of it, is being able to experience this happy place with your family and creating these memories that last generationally.
Yeah. I
Yeah, I think
agree.
that's the magic of it.
Yeah.
It's the magic of it.
Oh, memories.
Sayo, what
That's
do
all I can
you
say. It's
yes.
memories. Such good memories
Yes,
at
that's
that
true
place.
legacy, creating experiences and sharing our stories. That to me is what true legacy is all about. And that's what you're sharing, the things your father and your mother has done and how it has influenced you. And now you're paying that forward with influencing your generation, but also the next generation, because these podcasts and the things we do online are going to outlive us. And so it is how we kind of immortalize ourselves in a good way. So I love that. And my question is, what's something that your generation is getting right when it comes to money and building wealth?
Something that they're doing right. That's tough. And I'm not trying to like downplay the young generation. But not a lot of things feel natural. But I think a lot of people tend to overlook the general potential that young people have because the older people have grown up in a different age. We're growing up in a
Yeah.
different age, so s- and sometimes it tends to create a conflict, and those ages tend to clash because they have a different um view or perspective of what life and success looks to them. But I think young people have so much at their hands today. We have a lot to take advantage of, compared to, how my dad was growing up, right? We have, our phones and we have our computers, we have our AI, and social media has never been easier to make money off of. Um, and because that we have so many advantage with us today, there's really no excuse anymore that we can't learn anything. There really is no excuse that you can't take the time to learn and grow and develop the skills that are important and are really serious when it comes to gaining that success in life. So I think what they're doing a really good job at is being really savvy with tech and knowing how to use AI, because a lot of people tend to see the evil in the AI. In one case, AI is a little bit is scary, but that's not, we're not paying attention to that. But what we are paying attention to is the tool that we have at our hand and what it can do for us. And, you know, AI can do a really good job at helping you, start a business, look at ways on how you can develop this skill, develop this habit, this, that, all these things. And it's just because we have this tool available to us. Again, there really is no excuse, and you can learn anything. You could just ask AI, how can I get good at, how can I get better at drawing? Give me like a 15-20 day plan, what I should do every day to just practice my drawing and eventually become uh the next Van Gogh or whatever. um, but right there, we really we can do a really good job if we have that drive, of course. Because I think when it comes to wanting to be successful, you need to have that drive to do it, right? If you don't have the drive, you don't have the fire, then it's going to be nothing. Then it'll mean nothing to you. So using and this could be an advice to anyone who's listening to this, like if they're really unsure and maybe they just can't find an actual person to talk to about this, or get an actual coach with them. you know AI is really your next best tool there. Really, AI is your next best thing to help you in your growth process and learning valuable skills to help you in life. So I think that's something that the young generation can do a good job at, but I also think they are doing something about it, something with it as well.
From the
Yeah.
outside looking in, I feel that the younger generation, what I think that they're doing right is having the mindset that anything is possible. That
Yeah.
there are there's so many things that are possible. Like you said yourself, that making money on social media has never been easier. And I think for some of us who were born in the 1900s, uh, making money online has its share of mental blocks that we share that we have to kind of get over in order to get into that space where anything is possible. And I feel that there are plenty of youth who don't have these mental blocks and see possibility. And from an AI perspective, there's always been this concern about AI replacing people when it comes to the workforce. And I heard someone, I couldn't tell you his name if you paid me $1 million, but I remember him saying that it's not so much that AI will replace people, but he said people with AI will replace people without AI.
Mm.
And that hit home because it's changing so fast and there's so much to learn. And I'm learning about the good and the bad, such as, putting several models in a closed environment and giving them or putting them at war and seeing that every single model, with the exception of a few, all push the nuclear button. Right. So, but I also see how like there are so many beautiful things that people are able to do with this software or with these models. And at some point we just have to say, I've got to find my space in this space and not pay attention, kind of like the horse with the blinders on that's running their race. It's like you got to run your race with the skills that you have and the skills that you can acquire by using these models.
100%.
I'm definitely now my mindset before a few years ago was like, what's this AI thing? Like there was definitely a block. And I just noticed it and I was like, okay, I'm going to figure out what this is. And I'm so glad that I did finally get over that hurdle that you talked about, Coach Kyle, of that mental block we have because it's something so new and so foreign. And we know what life is like without it. And we've been able to build a somewhat successful life without these things. But it's when you really think about it, it's a really great tool. It's not the end all be all, but it's a really great tool to use to help you navigate the different things that we're going through and to help you get through these things. Like any other tool you use in your toolbox, it's a tool to have to be able to whip out when you need it. And so understanding is definitely pivotal. And one thing that I think the younger generation is doing a great job at is challenging the status quo. And AI would definitely be a part of that, is like saying, you know what? The old way seems to be very archaic. It seems to be, that when you think about the Industrial Revolution and going, go to school, get a job, work 30, 40 years, then retire and then live life and 401ks. It's like, that is definitely an outdated mindset. And I love that the younger generation is like, we're not doing that. We're going to figure out how to create wealth using social media, using AI, and we're going to live our life today. We're not waiting. We're going to live our life today. So I definitely think, I love that as well. And that's why I surround myself with younger people as well, because it's about bridging that gap, but also like we can learn from each other. There's no us against them. I do believe there's an opportunity for us to bridge and learn from one another. For sure. Well we are definitely approaching one of my favorite parts of the podcast, which is our rapid fire round. But really quickly, before we get into the rapid fire, I just want to ask you one question. What's one habit that a young person can do today to get started on their financial wealth journey?
I'm so glad that you asked me that question, Sapphire, because that is a part of what I'm trying to forward to the young generation. And, I'm sure you remember this, but my personal mission on the podcast is to help 1,000 teenagers start their wealth journey so that they can pursue that long-term financial confidence and long-term financial freedom by investing $100 a month. And this kind of just goes back into the same thing, which is being intentional early, because again, it's not how much, but it's, it's the time there. It's about how early. And we as young people, 15, 16, 17, we have a huge, huge advantage, an early advantage. Starting at 15 compared to maybe 30, that is a very, very massive difference compared to
Mhm.
starting at that age, or compared to starting at 30. So that is a massive, massive 15-year gap, and you'll be way ahead of the game starting early compared to starting just later in life. And, you know, I can't, you really can't stress that enough, because time is really one of our biggest superpowers, and we want to be able to take advantage of that. So that's why I really encourage and believe in that idea of saving, investing early, really, really early, being intentional early, so that, you know, it's not just because it's not just for me, but they'll see the possibility that the financial freedom and that financial confidence, that is a possibility for them, and that they can enjoy life they can enjoy life to, what they want. They can enjoy life how they want to. They can do what they want with the people they want and as often as they want. And, you know, and I really, really enforce that, because, if they don't start early enough, it's going to build one of the worst feelings and emotions to have in the world, which is regret. Because
Yeah.
I've seen a lot around me. I've, met a lot of people, and I'm like, I introduced that mission to them, and I asked them, I want to hear their opinion on what they think about saving and investing. And a lot of people that, who talk to me, they've told me that they wish that they started early. They wish that they started at that age of 14, 15, 16. But unfortunately they didn't, and they started really later on in life, at, like, around, not people don't even realize it until like 40, 45. That's a huge gap right there.
Yeah.
And it's, it's something that's, not fun to think about, and it's definitely scary to think like, wow, that's where I could end up if I don't do it. But it's to build that clarity, and to build that sense of urgency. Because no one wants to go at the end of their life, and they're like, I wish I did more of this. I regret not starting this, not doing that. And, there's a lot of I regret, and there's a lot of I wish. And if young people don't want to end up in that, unfortunate circumstance, in that, that hole, in that trap of saying that I wish I did this and I wish I started, this is why it's so important to start early, so that they don't have that same regret. Because I know a lot of I know a lot of people who are older. They said they wish that they started and they regret not doing it. So for young people, that they should definitely take action early and start saving and investing, because time is our most valuable asset, and we want to make sure that we're taking advantage of that, so we don't say at the end of our life, that
Mm.
I wish that I started. I regret not starting early.
Well said. Well said. Well, that's going to take us right into our rapid fire round. We have 1 to 2 minutes to answer each question. I have 4 questions here for you today. Are you ready, Sahil?
I'm ready. I'm ready. Give it to me.
Okay, let's go. Let's go. What's one word that describes you today?
One word to describe me, I'd say driven. And that's because, again, I've seen what happens when you don't take action early. Being driven is what I am, and that's what I'm staying on track to do, is staying driven.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you. I love that. I love that. I love that. What's one book you think everyone should read at least once?
One book everyone should read at least once, I'd probably say, and I'm sure people listening to this have heard of it, which is Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And
Yes.
that's because it shifts how you think about money, from going from working for the money to making the money work for you. Because again, from what I've seen in my own experience now, I haven't lived on this world long enough, but just based off what I've seen, and I've seen a lot, but a lot of people, they aren't prioritizing making money work for them, and they are a slave to their own work and to their money. So making money work for you, definitely.
Yes. Definitely one of my top fives for sure. Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yes.
Classic. It's a classic. You can't go wrong with that one at all, especially for the youth. Great book.
Why not?
What do you hope people feel after being in your presence?
What do I want people to feel being in my presence? I want people to feel that they're capable, like they're closer to starting than they actually think. They just need to act, right? They
No.
need to take that action. I want people to feel like, hey, you have this dream, you have this goal right here. You are capable of doing that. You're actually, if you just act right now, you can achieve that dream and you can achieve that goal. That's what I want people to feel, is that I want them to feel that they are capable of doing and starting what they want.
Wow, that's powerful. I love that. I love that. Last but not least, if your soul could leave a sticky note on the mirror for you every morning, what would it say?
That's a good one. That's a good one. I'd say my sticky note would probably be: action creates clarity, but waiting creates doubt.
Mm. Well said. Well said. Dropping gems. It's my little gem fingers right here. Dropping gems on Soul Shift Sessions podcast. Thank you so much for coming on Soul Shift Session and sharing your wisdom, your knowledge, your experience, your story. We definitely appreciate you. Where can people find you and reach out to you and learn more about you?
Absolutely, Sapphire. Thank you so much. You can reach out to me on my LinkedIn, my Facebook. It's just my name, Saahil Baxi. And, I'm always looking to help the young generation. If you are a teenager, young adult who is really interested in learning about, how they can get that, how they can start, saving, investing, something like that, I'm always here to bring that inspiration and bring that clarity so that they can take that action. And you can also reach out to me by my email. It's sahilbakshi2022@gmail.com. Looking forward to anyone who reaches out.
And where can we listen to your podcast, Future Millionaires?
Future Millionaires, absolutely. So you can listen to my podcast. My main platform right now is going to be Apple Podcasts. You can just search up Future Millionaires in there and you will find me.
Awesome. Awesome. I also would like to say I am truly honored that Soul Shift Sessions is your first experience as a podcast guest. I love that for us. Like, we can say we had Saahil Baxi on our show first time. Love it. Love it.
Well, thank you, Sapphire. And actually, I've been on one previously, so I've been on one or two previously, so I think this might be my second or my third. But again,
We'll
it's
take the
still
place.
something
We'll
that's
take-
new.
Yes.
Yes. Take the place that you can get, but it still feels pretty new to me, and I need to be on more just to train that muscle.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to Soul Shift Sessions podcast, where we have deep transformative conversations that have to transform your mind to transform your life. Remember, sharing is caring. If you know someone who can use a soul shift, please make sure you share this episode with them today. And don't forget that you can follow all things Soul Shift Sessions at www.soulshift.sessions.com. Coach Kyle, any final words for the Soul Shifters?
What you do today can improve all your tomorrows.
I love that. I love that. Until next time, guys, don't forget to let your soul glow.
So long, everyone.
Bye.